Hello, Abnormal Family. I have a new one for you today, and also I'm trying out a new thumbnail to see if it's going to work with me not having to make thumbnails or if y'all like the thumbnails that I make. So we're going to see how this video does. This is a Sasquatch encounter that happened in Wyoming. Here's what was sent in. This happened to me and my little brother. Some background. We live in Park County, Wyoming. Our parents originally came from Texas but moved away before settling in. Our father was a good man, a cowboy and a country boy. He was an awesome dad and a loving husband. He taught me and Matt, my little brother, how to be cowboys, hunt, fish, camp, and to enjoy life outdoors since we were kids. He was always there on our special occasions. He was there when Matt and I graduated from high school, when I joined the U.S. Army, and when we got married. But sadly, after a few years, my dad passed away. The cause of death was a heart disease. My mom and Matt and I were deeply hurt by it. We had him buried out in the open country like he always wanted. It was hard for us to let him go. We all loved him so much. A year later, Matt and I decided to go camping up in the mountains just to reminisce about the good old times we had with our dad. Our wives understood and told us to be careful. We took a couple of horses with us since our favorite spot was deep in the heart of the mountains. Once we had everything we needed, we headed off. We pulled over, which we usually do, saddled up the horses with all of our stuff, and rode to the campsite. It's been a long time since both of us came here. A lot of memories. We had a bit of trouble finding our way, but eventually Matthew and I managed to arrive at the campsite, and it looked like it did before. It always reminded me of what it looks like in the movie, Brokeback Mountain. It was midday and the sky was covered in gray clouds, but it didn't look like it was going to rain. We tied the horses to a tree and went through the process of setting up our tents and starting a fire. We then sat around the campfire. Once we're done and talked about the good old memories we'd had. Matt, I sure missed being here. Me, yeah, me too, but it's not the same without Dad. Matt, yeah. I looked over at Matt, who was staring at the fire, and I asked him, "When's the last time the three of us went camping?" Matt sat there thinking about my question before responding. When we all went to the rodeo in Weston on a weekend after you got discharged." Me, "Wow, I can't believe it's been so long." Matt, "Yeah." Our conversation went on for a few hours. I then decided to go hunting alone. Matt stayed behind to guard the camp. I took my rifle and one of the horses with me, and I made my way into the woods. A few minutes of walking, I hunkered down and waited for an animal to come by. Eventually, a deer did come by, and I ended up killing it. I had to go through the process of skinning it before mounting it on my horse. I walked back to camp while I was leading the horse. As I was walking, I felt a sudden feeling of being watched. I even felt goosebumps around me. I didn't think anything of it at first, but then I heard the tree branch snap in the distance. But when all went quiet, all of a sudden, it was so quiet I couldn't hear anything. I know when the woods go quiet, it means that something big is nearby. I figured it was a bear. I looked around, but there was only so much I could see. It kept going, but was still cautious with my surroundings. When I got back, everything went back to normal again, and I saw Matt was preparing some canned food we had brought along. It was already starting to get dark, and Matt and I made the most of it, and we had our dinner. The next morning, we went fishing at a nearby lake. It was peaceful and all. As we fished, we continued talking. We switched to the topic about cryptids, mostly Bigfoot, and how we always hoped to encounter him, or at least see sightings of him out here. Matt, "Do you think he exists?" And I said, "Bigfoot? Maybe, but that's probably more popular back east. Out here in the west, it's rare, you know how folks are, even if they catch a glimpse of him. They'll never talk about it." "Yeah, probably, but you'll never know. He might be out here watching us right now." "Okay, I think you and your woman have been watching too many Mountain Monster episodes. Matt started laughing at me and told me to shut up. We managed to catch a few fish, but ended up releasing them. After 2 good hours, we headed back to camp, but then something caught Matt's eye. You see something? I walked over to get a better look. I followed along, and it looked like footprints was on the trail. They didn't look like they belonged to an animal I know. In fact, they weren't normal. It was like a rectangle with curved sides. But one footprint had like a circular shape on the top right, and one on the top left, almost looking like a toe of some sort. Matt said, "There's no way that's a Sasquatch trail." Me, "Nah, it's probably just some fool from another camp just messing with us." Matt said, "Since when do folks start coming here? We're the only ones that know this spot." And I told him, I said, "I don't know. Let's just chalk it up to being a bear, right?" Matt says, "Sure." We made it back to camp, but we both just couldn't get the footprint out of our minds. Just the way it looked, it didn't look like someone would try to prank us. We walked about, going back to see where they led. In the end, we went back, but armed just in case. Once we found them, we followed them. Every step seemed to be like 3 feet away from each other. This was a huge stride. As we were following them, I felt the feeling again, like we were just stalked. I could tell Matt can feel it too. But we just kept going. Eventually, the trail led us to a fallen tree. I could tell this was made recently. It didn't look like it was crushed by the wind. It looked like something pushed it with a strong force and the weight. I think my theory was right, because I found what looked to be, and my theory, hair from something. "You think a bear did this?" Matt said. I said, "I don't think so. If it was then, it must have been huge and strong to bring down a tree like this one." And then Matt decided to try something out. He told me about making a noise on a tree to get their attention. He made a thud and waited. But this time we heard it. A distance, there was another thud. We looked at the direction of where the noise came from. We looked at each other with shocked expressions. We heard it again, followed by what sounded like a growl, mixed with a bellow, low guttural sound. Then another thud, and then growling. There were no words to describe what I was feeling. Then out of nowhere, a large rock came out of nowhere and almost hit us. But luckily we dodged it. We both made a run for it to camp. As we were running, it felt like another boulder was just missing my shoulder. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of our camp. It took us a minute to breathe and just laughed it off in the end. All I can say is that whatever threw those boulders must have been strong, because they looked heavy, even for a normal person to be able to throw them. And then Matt said, "It looks like we got a Bigfoot." And I said, "Ain't that the truth?" Our hearts were pounding. We didn't know what to do next, but for the safety of the horses, we decided to take them back to the truck, except for one in case we had to get out. I doubt that Bigfoot or whatever it was followed us back, or at least I thought. That night was uneventful, and we did end up going to sleep. Maybe 2 hours of sleeping. I heard Matt's tent unzip. I assumed he was going to take a leak. But then, a few minutes later, I heard my tent unzip, and Matt came in with a surprised look. I said, "Bro, what are you?" Quietly. "Quiet. Shh. Listen." Footsteps. We heard their footsteps coming from the darkness, and they sounded really heavy. At first I thought it was a bear, but we heard that familiar growl again. The growl was deep this time. Matt and I were really scared at this point. I grabbed my rifle and I got it ready. We heard the thing going through our stuff, maybe helping itself out to our food. My hands were shaking at this point. I crawled over to the zipper of my tent and I peeked out. And to horror, there it was. Part of it was illuminated by what was left of the fire. It was crouched down. It was big as a bear, but I could only imagine how huge it was if it stood up. It had fur or hair all over its body, and its arms looked like it was strong enough to rip a man apart. I heard the horse. It got spooked. It was making noises as if it was startled. The creature looked in the direction of the horse, and its eyes were glowing a greenish color from the fire. I felt like if it spotted me, and it came closer to my tent, I just knew it had spotted me. But I didn't hesitate to shoot it. I heard it roar in pain with every shot I hit, and then it took off into the darkness of the woods. But I can still hear it near our camp. Matt and I ran for the horse and rode to the truck. He took out his flashlight to illuminate the way. We made it to the truck and we put the horses in, and the horses were surely ready to rest. We heard that thing roar again. Matt turned around to find it with his flashlight, and he spotted it maybe 30 yards away. It was charging toward us. We scrambled into the truck, hightailed it out of there. We were both scared and confused at what had just happened. We stopped at a motel for the night, and in the morning we drove home. I guess we're still pretty stocked, because, man, I'd never seen anything like that. We felt, how did something like this happen? Because our wives had asked us also what happened when we arrived, and we lied to them. We knew they would never believe us, and we told them it was just an aggressive bear. This thing had shredded our campsite, and I think was close to shredding us. Our horses still do not like to go to the woods. I feel like they knew how close that night we also all got to getting eaten. What do you think of that story, guys? I've been investigating people that's been having Sasquatch, Dogman, werewolf, cryptid encounters, and as you all know, I'm the one that came up with the moon theory, that these creatures hunt by the phase of the moon, not because of the movies actually of the full moon, because a full moon I have found that they actually are not that active. I believe they hunt on the waning and waxing of the moon because they use the low light to their advantage with the bars, I believe, that exist in their eyes that give them better eyesight than us in low light conditions. So if they hunt in the waning and waxing of the moon, we still would not have that good of eyesight in the woods, but they would have great eyesight. And with the advantage of better hearing and smelling, and been faster than us, they would have a huge advantage, because then they also are able to use the light from the moon better than what we can. Now on a full moon we can see pretty good, and they don't hunt that much because they know that it's kind of a fair option and we could get a shot off on them. And I do believe they fear guns and know what guns are. But another mistake I noticed that they made is they done tree knocks at it. And I believe by doing the tree knocks that they caused the animal to come to them. They were using a form of communication. Some people believe that tree knocks are wood slapped against a tree, and some people believe that they use their vocal cords that come down from the Nephilim to be able to make these noises. Another thing that I'm studying, though, that goes with the moon phases, I've noticed a lot of people that have these cryptid encounters when they go to the woods, they're actually either talking about these cryptids or expecting to experience these cryptids. And it makes me wonder if these monitoring spirits I've been reading about sense or hear them say that, and they go alert the ones that are in the flesh, the flesh and blood bodies, the werewolves, Bigfoot, Googway, etc. I think there may be a connection to this. But I want to check further into it to make sure and keep continuing to look at different cases and to see if there's an MO, if you will. But thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one, and until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be communicating with them, because they might just come up and eat you and your horse.